If we've learned anything this year is that congressional Republicans are more interested in serving Donald Trump than they are in serving their constituents. Over the past 10 months, they have given away permanent tax cuts to the wealthiest people on earth, demolished half of the White House, pardoned violent insurrectionists, significantly driven up cost of living across the country, and then given themselves a taxpayer-funded 8-week vacation, all so that they could delay as long as possible Congress voting to release the Epstein files. And now they're trying to gaslight you into believing that you should trust them on crime policy. They want you to believe that living in a police state is a good or normal thing. They want you to be okay with having armed soldiers and federal agents monitor you as you shop for groceries or take your children to school. They want you to think that you won't be affected. But we've already seen Americans detained, arrested, injured, and some nearly killed because of this administration's reckless approach to handling crime. And they're doing all of this without acknowledging the fact that Republican-led states are experiencing a murder and crime and violent crime crisis, and they have for the last 2 decades. The Republicans' murder state rates were 33% higher than Democratic state murder rates in both 21 and 2022. In fact, over the past 22 years, the Republican state murder rates were nearly a quarter higher compared to states that are led by Democrats. Even when you remove Democratic cities and counties from the Republican states' data, their murder rate is still nearly a quarter higher than states run by Democrats. Ms. Levine, how long have you studied crime?
You're going to have me show my age. Is that nice?
It doesn't show on your face, honey. That's all that matters.
Let's just say about 3 decades.
Okay, very good. So would you agree that factors like poverty, lax gun laws, and a lack of public services can lead to higher crime rates?
Yes, I agree with that.
According to the Census Bureau, states with the highest poverty rates are disproportionately Republican governed and often have laxer gun laws and less public services. Wouldn't you agree that these factors are likely why Republican-led states have higher murder rates than Democratic states?
I would. In fact, I would like to lift up some research from one of our faculty members, Dr. Robert Apel. He recently conducted a study looking at the relationship between levels and quality of public assistance and crime, and found that there is the relationship in the expected direction. That is, lower public assistance, more crime, more recidivism.
Thank you so much for that. So not only are you likely to be a victim of violent crime in a Republican-led state, you're now less likely to receive victim assistance because of Republicans cutting resources for food, shelter, and transportation. This is what Donald Trump's America looks like. Never let a wannabe tyrant convince you that the only way for you to be safe is to live under a police state where he controls your day-to-day activities by means of military or armed federal agents. That's what we call a dictatorship. And I just want to be clear, because I appreciate what you just brought up, because I did serve as a public defender and a court-appointed attorney. So as we sat here, I remembered that one of the witnesses' opening statements, they mentioned the word why. And as Michael Jackson used to sing, why? We have not dealt with the why. We have not dealt with why crime happens. And if you understand the why, then maybe you can come to a conclusion. But as someone who has sat there with people that were too poor to be able to afford their own attorneys, I can tell you some whys. But what I am going to do is talk to you about why the idea that incarceration is the only thing that can fix anything, and the fact that we have 2 witnesses that are telling us that we need to go back to the '94 crime bill when we learned that all that did was drive up incarceration. It didn't drive down addiction, because addiction is actually an illness, but that's a whole other issue. And you can't incarcerate your way out of an illness, just like you can't incarcerate somebody that has cancer and believe that somehow they now will be cured. But I digress. What I will tell you is that we also know that the U.S. has the highest incarceration rate of any independent democracy on earth. Worse, every single state incarcerates more people per capita than most nations. In the global context, even progressive U.S. states like New York and Massachusetts appear to be extreme, just like Louisiana and Mississippi. In addition to that, the United States has the highest incarceration rate, the highest average firearms per 100 people, highest homicides per 100,000 people, and the lowest safety and securing rate of 12 countries in comparison. I had a 17-year-old that was charged with stealing food out of the concession stand at his high school. Unfortunately, in the state of Texas, at the age of 17, you are considered an adult. So what did they do? They decided to charge him with burglary of a habitation. He had an attorney that was not me, when he went through this. They put him on felony probation. Ultimately, they revoked his probation because he was too poor to show up to his actual probation officer, as his mom was the one who was required to take off work so that she could take him in. I'm gonna wrap up, but this is really important for people to understand. At the end of the day, they ended up giving my kid the maximum punishment for less than $20 worth of candy that he stole out of the concession stand. Ultimately, I told them that it was a mistake to send him to prison. When he went to prison, he learned how to be a criminal. That's where he learned how to cook meth. The next time that I saw him, it was because he had committed a real crime. Ultimately, all that did was harm our communities. And I will be clear, this was a poor young man, but he was not black. So, and this was in rural Texas.
Time has
this
expired.
was East Texas.
Time has
So I want to
expired.
be smart about what we do with crime, and I want to make sure that
Time
we
has
are putting our
expired.
money in smart places. Thank you so much for